relating to 4 candidate committees from the 2021 election cycle, 1 candidate committee from the 2021 special election cycle, and 1 candidate committee from the 2023 election cycle. The board will also vote on a complaint from 1 candidate committee. I'll now turn it over to Executive Director Paul Ryan for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair Schaefer. Good morning, everyone. The June 23rd primaries are now behind us, but CFB staff remain very busy. So I'll take this opportunity to give a quick rundown of some of what our staff are working on. Last week, the mayor and city council reached agreement on a budget for fiscal year 28, which began July 1st. We thank the mayor and the council, and most importantly, the people of New York City for providing this agency with the financial resources necessary to make New York City democracy work for everyone. Our finance and operations team is closing out the budget year that ended last week and transitioning to our new fiscal year budget. Their careful management of our financial resources makes all of our agency's accomplishments possible. Next Wednesday, July 15th, is the deadline for campaigns to file their July periodic disclosure statements. We expect 688 campaigns to file disclosure reports covering 14 election cycles stretching back to 2020 and forward to 2029. This will undoubtedly keep our campaign affairs team very busy. We'd love to see long inactive campaigns file the necessary digital paperwork to cease filing with the Campaign Finance Board. This would make life easier both for those associated with these committees and for CFB staff. If you're a candidate or treasurer of an inactive committee, reach out to your candidate services liaison for guidance on how to meet these cease filing requirements. We're standing by to assist you. Our audit team has begun issuing final audit reports for 2025 campaigns. 28 campaigns have already received their final audit reports. Our auditors will continue working on audits while also reviewing hundreds of disclosure statements filed by next week's deadline. Our public affairs team is looking ahead to November 3rd's general elections, finalizing plans to meet New Yorkers in their communities and in their preferred languages, to ensure that all eligible voters are registered and have a plan to get out and vote in November. Our strategy, products, and innovation staff have their noses to the grindstone, working with staff throughout the agency to analyze and improve our existing processes and build new technology to support these improved processes to ensure that CFB operations in the 2029 elections run more smoothly and efficiently than ever before. Our people and engagement team has onboarded a dozen new employees since the board's June meeting and continues to support the CFB's most valuable resource, our staff of nearly 200 people, through learning and development, protection of equal employment opportunity and other workplace rights, and most importantly, perhaps, payroll administration. Last but certainly not least, our legal team supports every facet of the agency's operations, including enforcement of our city's campaign finance laws. As Chair Schaefer mentioned moments ago, we have 6 enforcement matters on the board's agenda today, as well as the board vote on a complaint. Members of our legal team will be up here at the front of the room representing the agencies and the public's interest in those matters momentarily. So without further ado, I'll hand the meeting back to you, Chair Schaefer.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a motion to ratify my earlier determination on June 18th, 2026, to award public funds to the candidate committee of Carl Wilson in the amount of $58,179. I'll ask Board Member Camp to make that motion.
I move ratification of the chair's decision to make that public funds determination and payment as described.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries. We have several enforcement matters on our agenda today, only 2 of which involve appearances by candidates or their representatives. So I'll call those 2. The first is Jonathan Bailey. If you'd have a seat at the table, Mr. Bailey, and our staff will take a seat at the opposite table. The way we'll proceed, Mr. Bailey, welcome, by the way, welcome. The way we proceed, we ask the staff to make a brief opening statement that just tees up the issue. It's not really an argument, just letting us know why we're here. You'll then have the opportunity to make any arguments or statements that you wish to make. There may be some rebuttal, there may be some questions from the board. We'll go back and forth until everybody has said everything that they have to say. And then we'll do the next one, and then we'll go into deliberations and come back with a decision. So.
Good morning, Chair Schaefer, members of the board, Executive Director Ryan. My name is Shayna Iden. I'm an attorney for the CFB. I'm joined by Samaleh Omar, a CFB auditor. Before the board today is a matter of the Bailey campaign in the 2021 Democratic primary election for City Council District 26. Jonathan Bailey was a participant in the program and received public funds. CFB staff recommends that the board find that the campaign committed the following violation: failing to respond to the initial documentation request and the draft audit report. The campaign contests this recommendation.
Go ahead, Ms. Bell.
Okay, awesome. I want to start off by acknowledging the Campaign Finance Board's responsibility, of course, for oversight. I want to express that I appreciate what that does for our city. All of my interactions with the Campaign Finance Board have been fantastic. I don't normally have people attack me for thousands of dollars, but Shayna Iden has been absolutely professional, considerate, and has definitely fought to make sure that New York City's laws are being upheld. I'm not contesting necessarily the IDR or the failure to respond to the draft audit report, but I'm hoping to convey some aspects of the overall situation that could encourage some consideration, that would be reflective of the situation of the campaign, of myself, and how I see at least it reflecting former rulings by the Campaign Finance Board. When I first got into this election, I had a lot of reasons for expecting it to go a certain way. There's a lot of enthusiasm around the 2021 city council elections. I've been very involved with a particular activist group that was influential in Queens, being a part of a major congressional campaign there, also being active and in a particular successful assembly race, and in general, having a social network, an activist network that overlapped a lot of significant successes. In addition to that, it was the district that the Amazon HQ2 fight happened, which I was very involved in. General fights around fighting gentrification and displacement of people in the district, or especially as it considers Section 9. I also in the district and adjacent to, there was the Amazon worker movement, which I was a part of co-founding. And on top of this, this is during the middle of what is some of the biggest uprisings around police accountability of our lifetimes. I say this mostly just to detail that I've been involved with a lot of things that led me to believe, especially with the way that people expressed their sentiments, their solidarity to me, that led me to think that the way in which I'd be moving into the campaign would be robust. Unfortunately, due to conflicts and oversights on my own about, the agreements and disagreements within some of those networks, I ended up being in a situation where it was challenging to figure out how and if any of that support would materialize. As I progressed, it resulted in me being more ostracized. People who were professionals in the space, people who I trusted, it became very difficult to be able to collaborate with the folks that I hoped to collaborate with. This is important because this deeply affected the way that the campaign moved forward in being able to have consistent practices, being able to set up systems and have them be executed effectively. And at some point, definitely resulted in me considering to withdraw from the race. While that was happening, there was also at the same time a lot of enthusiasm from very young, very beginning activists in their, teens and early 20s, who really got involved and just kind of, took the reins of a lot of things. This was cool and exciting, but also chaotic, and resulted in a lot of challenges around trying to cohere practices around the campaign. This created a ton of complexity, challenge to maintain systems, and kind of just a general not being able to move from survival to real administrative consistency. This ended up just being kind of this is how when the campaign ended, this is kind of the environment that I was in and trying to sort through after. In being in that situation, I want to say there are certain things that I feel that I did effectively in the fulfillment of my responsibilities. As can be seen, there's no actions on my part for personal enrichment. There's no there's been no showing of intentional misconduct, and there's absence of any kind of fraud of any kind. My eventual response to the draft audit report was thorough. My failures to act earlier, more quickly, is really from a lack of my own capacity and disorganization that I had to sort through. Because of this, it's more that I feel that this request, this penalty recommendation, kind of outstrips, what I think might be seen as appropriate by the board. It's equal to the penalty for fraud under the 2021 penalty guidelines, M14. Material misrepresentation, fraud, or submission of false or fictitious information. It states that the penalty for these violations may be up to $10,000 per violation. Even with that, it says it may be up to. Starting with a penalty recommendation for something that is essentially an administrative failure and delay. But also not one that withholds money from the city, seems to be excessive. And furthermore, in a lot of circumstances, the board has been in similar situations and has decided very differently. In some past elections and, in addressing some campaigns, there's lots of examples of campaigns who failed in in the IDR and the DAR, but were seen as deserving significantly reduced penalties, especially in the circumstance where they were able to fully respond to everything within the draft audit report. For example, though this is like some time ago, this is still under the same law that is in effect today, with the Barksdale campaign. Because the board specifically stated, because the campaign's response to the penalty notice, responded to the penalty notice substantially and addressed major findings in the DAR. The campaign submission is considered a late response to the DAR. That was part of their justification for the reduction of penalties to 267 for the IDR and 133 for the DAR penalty. In this circumstance, every single one of the items brought up in the DAR was satisfied to the satisfaction of.
Mr. Bailey, would you remind us in the case that you've just cited what the original, if you know, what the original proposed penalty was and not just what it was reduced to?
Let's see.
We can look it up if you don't have it.
Okay, I don't have it right
Okay.
in front of me at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Yes. So in the DAR that was submitted to me, all of the items were satisfied, at least to the satisfaction of the auditors, which I think also helps to show that there's at no time in which I was holding city money that had to be returned to the city, that this is exclusively just a penalty for my delay in filing the paperwork. There's other circumstances as well that include both situations where campaigns didn't receive public funds and situations where campaigns did receive public funds. Again, I'm requesting that it be seen and understood that because everything was satisfied, that it's understood that at no point was the campaign holding funds that had to be returned to the city. All right. Yes. Let's see. The board has also waived IDR penalties and only applied DAR penalties while reducing them as specific to my situation. I know that it's part of the mission of the New York City Campaign Finance Board to be able to encourage ordinary people to participate in elections. Throughout this campaign, I worked my job at an Amazon warehouse. I was only able to participate in the election because of what the Campaign Finance Board's work is and what it does for the city. Even now, I work at a checkout counter in retail, making a little bit over $20 an hour. I'm very much part of the people who are trying to be targeted for being able to participate in this process. I'm hoping that the board sees it as these situations as mitigating, that there is an understanding of both, what would be my capacity to pay in a certain amount of time and, possible impacts on other committee members. It would be something that I am completely satisfying myself, obviously. Hopefully, obviously. And I guess the real world impact of the fines and penalties, to find and see them as, possibly disproportionate to actual harm caused.
Thank you for that statement, Mr. Bailey. Before I ask our staff if they have anything further to say, let me say this. The penalty guidelines, of course, are guidelines, and we have equitable discretion with respect to their imposition. Just so the public understands, the penalties for failure to respond to the initial document request and to the draft audit report are geared or tiered, really, depending on the size of the campaign. So the more public funds you receive, the higher the penalty, up to a maximum of $10,000, which is what we have at issue in this case. And the reason for that is that it enormously increases the burden and workload of our staff when they don't get responses to the IDR, DAR, and have to try to make recommendations in their absence. And that, of course, is true even when there's finally, as in your case, a response at the time of the penalty recommendation. But having said that, we have in the past and always do exercise our discretion based on the facts of each individual case. And we've heard you and will consider all the things that you've said. But I just wanted the record to reflect essentially how we got here. And having said that, I'll ask the staff if they have anything they'd like to add.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add is that the campaign did not respond to the DAR. They responded to the enforcement notice, and they did resolve some findings in the enforcement notice through their response. However, there were findings that were in the DAR and not in the enforcement notice that have never been responded to by the campaign.
And why didn't they not make it into the enforcement notice if they were in the DAR but weren't responded to?
Things that were potentially below threshold or
I see.
not being penalized or.
So people understand below threshold, we have some discretion with respect to minor violations to basically let them go. Okay.
There were like charges everywhere from $2.50 to 20 some dollars. The MTA does not give out receipts.
Right.
But anything that costs more than lunch was information was given in detail.
Any questions from other members of the board? Okay, well, I want to thank you for your appearance today and for making the presentation that you did, which I think is helpful. And thanks to our staff as always. We'll going to hear one more case and go into deliberations and decide.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Al Hassan Kanu. Good morning, Mr. Kanu. So I know you were here before when I explained that our staff will just sort of tee up, explain what the issue is before us. You'll have the opportunity to make any statement or comments you wish to make and back and forth. So I'll ask our staff to
Good morning, Chair Schaefer, members of the board, Executive Director Ryan, and of course, good morning to you, Mr. Kanu. My name is Isaac Kaplan. I'm an associate counsel here at the Campaign Finance Board. I'm joined today by Jennifer Lara, a senior complaints and investigations analyst. Before the board is the matter of the Kanu campaign for the 2021 election to City Council District 27 in Queens. CFB staff recommends that the board find that the campaign committed the following violation, making material misrepresentations in material furnished to the board. The campaign contests this recommendation.
Okay, Mr. Kanu, you have the floor.
Morning, board. Mr. Chef, Good morning. Good morning to you all. And thank you for allowing me to be here. And of course, thanks to the campaign finance team. Isaac has been great. I'm a little bit disappointed with CFB campaign staff with the way they've been handling stuff in regards to how we come here and we have conversation like everything is fine, but yet some of the rules and penalties that are being forced on candidates and campaigns is biased and it's unfair and unreasonable because some of the issues that some of these campaigns are facing is actually from CFB. Last night, first of all, I thank him, Isaac, when he came on board as my rep. He's been very diligent in terms of making sure that whenever I reach out to him, he's available. And we're able to talk and have meetings. Whenever I request meeting, we have those meetings. When I ran 2021 in June, primary election, then later on after the election, my treasurer resigned, left because she had a job overseas, he left. I explained that we were able to fix those issues. I had 3 violations, 3 penalties that I faced. We resolved 2 of them. Then 1 was left with this 10,000 penalty. Yesterday, I sent a document to Mr. Isaac explaining what had happened. The penalty of $10,000 is saying that I misrepresented dates. If you look at the forms that Mr. Isaac has, the affirmation forms, there's a date of the donation and there's a date of when I received the affirmation form from the donor. And on the form, at the top of the form, there is, on each form, campaign finance form, there is the top date of the actual form being printed. So if you look at each one of my forms, the date, like for example, this one, which is one of the forms being questioned, the date of the donation says May 15, 2021, and May 27 was when the donor signed it, but the printed form says October 10th, 2025. I didn't create that. That's from their system. The October 5, 2025 was populated to their own system. When I put in the form, that's what came out. Unfortunately for my campaign, we didn't know that date. There's no reason why I would receive a campaign donation from someone in 2001, then I put a date of 2025 on it. So I went to some of these donors this week. I've been trying to reach some of them. Some of them I have no contact with anymore. And they signed affirmation letters to show that they gave me those donations and on those correct dates rather than the dates printed on the forms by the system that CFB has. I think it's an error from the system that needs to be revisited and see if they can fix it so other candidates or campaign doesn't go through that situation. But it was not an intention or it was not an error for my campaign or for me. I am not knowledgeable of being a treasurer, but I did my best to make sure I provide every document that the campaign finance requested. The populated date that I'm here to defend was not created by me, and I don't think I should be punished for that. I have the affirmation letter that I sent to Mr. Isaac. He has those affirmation letter, and I made sure those affirmation letter, when I sent it out to the donors, I requested that they all be stamped with a notary, go to a bank and get a notary so I could present that to you guys today. That's why I'm here. And I don't think, I think the penalty is not justifiable because I did not commit the crime.
Would you like to respond?
Certainly. So let's start with the documents that were provided yesterday or tonight or last night. Mr. Kanu is correct that he provided affirmations. We routinely do not accept documents presented after the response to the enforcement notice. Late responded documentation under Rule 10-3B is only accepted by the board under extraordinary circumstances. But we did look at them. We did look at them, and what they show is, or what they purport to show, is that the underlying contributions were made by the contributors. But that isn't why we're here today. We're here today because affirmations, the ones that Mr. Kanu was discussing, the ones with the date at the top left, Mr. Kanu submitted affirmations in response to the enforcement notice in 2025 that were backdated to prior to the date that they were actually generated and printed. So I think it can be helpful in responding to Mr. Kanu to just lay out two things. How do we know that these documents were backdated, or why do we believe that? And why is Mr. Kanu's explanation for what happened not plausible and not something that we should listen to? So let's start with the first question. How do we know that these documents were backdated? When a campaign generates a affirmation, a contributor affirmation using our system, two things happen. The first thing is that the date that the document is generated for printing, Mr. Khan is correct, is stamped on the top left. The second thing that happens is our server, our system, makes a little note. And the note says, this campaign generated a document for this transaction on such and such a date at such and such a time. If you look at Exhibit 5 to the board packet, you'll see that on the top left, there are dates, October 9th and October 10th, the dates of printing, the dates of these documents were generated.
State the year.
2025. Thank you. All of the contributor signatures are from 2020 and 2021, years prior. When Mr. Kanu responded to the enforcement notice, and that response is responded to the revised enforcement notice, which we sent out saying, these documents, there's something wrong with these documents. That's Exhibit 4, page 1. He said, with respect to the allegation of material misrepresentation, this issue arose due to a computer date error. The system date on my computer was incorrect at the time the documents were printed, which resulted in an inaccurate printing date. So what Mr. Kanu said originally was the date on my computer was wrong, and therefore the date on the top left of these documents is incorrect. How do we know that this isn't a plausible explanation? Well, the first thing is we tested it. Jennifer Laura, who's sitting right next to me, did an amazing job with the investigation. She changed her computer date. She pulled documents from our system. No, it's the actual, real, genuine date is what's printed on the top left. But the other thing to think about is that this explanation doesn't really pass the sniff test. If Mr. Kanu is saying that the system date, that the date that was printed on the top left of the document was the date that his computer happened to be set to, at the time the documents were generated, that would require believing that his computer was had the dates October 9th and October 10th, 2025, the dates that the response to the enforcement notice would be due 4 years, 5 years later. So we have a lot of reason to believe that the dates on the top left are correct. And we have a lot of reason to believe that Mr. Kanu's explanation as proffered originally in response to the enforcement notice simply does not make sense.
There's one thing further, though, before I give you a chance to respond. The date that's generated on the upper left is generated by our system, not by his computer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Mr. Kanu, would you like to respond?
Yes. So first of all, I'm not a computer wizard, and I don't think you are either. And I know for a fact, computer and machine makes mistake. I know that for a fact. But I have a question is you said we're not here to defend, to argue about the information that I sent you. The conversation is the dates at the top, probably, or you saying that the date at the top was the date I printed it, and we misrepresented this date at the bottom. That's what you're accusing me for, right?
We're saying that these documents were generated, yes, on the dates on the top left corner.
Not this date here.
Not the date in the signature.
So you telling me, here's this individual, Mr. Bilal Kareem, that gave me money, $40 on the 16th of May, 2021. That's when he gave me money. And the affirmation you sent me when we were going through this process, you wanted me to confirm that he gave me that money. We sent you an affirmation on the 27th. He went to his bank to notary and have a letter signed that he gave me money on this date and signed this document on that date. Just to prove that this was his money and that was the date he signed it. So you telling me with all that legal system, he is lying and that notary is lying to create a date that have nothing to do with me. And the date at the top that you thinking that was when the computer put, I agree with that. I asked my wife, I said, is it my computer? She said, it's possible it's your computer. It's also possible it's the system that populated those dates. I go with the fact that it could be the system that populated those dates. I didn't type in those dates. If you look at all the forms that I signed, both Here, the date that was the donation was contributed is there. The date at the bottom where the donor signed is there in pens. This date is printed in computer print. That's not my point. I didn't change those dates. And even if we print it on that.
Interrupt you for a second, because it's a little hard for us to follow this without having the more recent affirmations in front of us. Could we get copies of those?
Sure. You mean the material that Mr. Kanu submitted?
Yes, that's right.
Can I, while he's distributing that, can I ask a question of the CFB staff?
Yes.
My question is just whether we've checked metadata. I would assume that would be the superior way of determining the history of a document and the generation of a document, rather than looking at the time date printed on the document.
Well, we looked at the logs that our system makes for when the documents are generated. I don't believe we pulled the metadata for the specific documents themselves that were submitted. But
Okay,
we know
but
from our
the
system.
analysis of the metadata would be conclusive, right?
I'm not totally versed in what the metadata would necessarily show.
Okay.
But yeah.
So we now have in front of us these donor affirmation letters, Mr. Kanu. And what they affirm, which really was never in dispute, was that these individuals made the contribution on the dates that they said they did back in 2020. But that's not the issue before us. The issue is not when they made the contribution. The issue is when they signed their original statement, which was, according to the CFB staff, backdated to 2021, I think it was, when in fact they signed it in 2025. And as I look at the evidence that you've now submitted, which include a donor affirmation letter, the affirmation letter simply reaffirms that the contribution was made back in 2020. It does not say anything about when the original statement was signed. Am I wrong about that?
I honestly believe that that's what we were here for. If that's what they're asking me for, I can have those people come here and testify and take an oath that they signed those documents on those days. Because some of those people that had those information I received yesterday, I have those people now available. I've been going to people's houses for the last couple of months, even when I'm sick, just to find people, and I can't find people. People are not available anymore. It's been 6 years. Just last month, I received calls from some of these people that CFP been calling them. I didn't even have contact of some of these people. They called me and said, we got a call from someone about donation. And are you running for office? I said, no, it's the 2021 election. I'm still going through the process. They're not even familiar with the process. And some of the people don't even remember donating money in 2021. I don't remember what I did last year for me to remember 2021. Those people are willing to come here and testify in person that they signed those documents on those days that they're claiming they did it. They're willing to do that, and I can bring them. Any one of them I can find that's available will come up here and testify that in person or on Zoom. But I think it's very insulting to think that $1,200 after 20 years in service in city council, I misrepresented and stole $1,200. That's a disrespect from CFP.
Well, I don't think anyone's accusing you of stealing anything, but I think
it's wrong.
right. So let me see. Let's just use this first one that the affirmation here signed by Mr. Ba, B-A-H,
yeah.
Mr. Ba.
Mhm.
This document was created in October of 2025. It could not have been signed as it purports to be in July of 2020. Is that correct?
That is our position, yes. And just, yes, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
You're not. I just want to say
correct.
that it may well be true that Mr. Ba made this contribution, legitimate contribution in July of 2020. The issue is this document was not signed in July of 2020. It was created in October of 2025 and the signature says it was signed in July of 2020, but that's not possible.
That is not possible. Just Board Member Smalls, as Jennifer Laura helpfully pointed out, with respect to your metadata question, all of the documents we have are scanned copies of signed documents, meaning the metadata wouldn't reflect the date of the original underlying document was generated. It would reflect the date that the document was scanned and sent to us. I want to be clear that, whenever we're pursuing a campaign for a violation of the Campaign Finance Board, and I say this to every single campaign, our goal is to allow you to demonstrate that you complied with the act and rules. It is not to pursue just for the sake of pursuing a penalty or a violation. I think that the revised enforcement notice and the board memo was very clear about the nature of the allegation here. If we were presented with evidence that showed that somehow, some way, our system made a mistake, that would be that. I have not seen that evidence. All I have seen is the explanation from the campaign that was originally proffered that a computer date error on their end is what resulted in the date on the top left being printed, which just does not make sense and is not how our system functions or works. I even asked Jennifer again to say, okay, well, what if the campaign re-downloaded documents that were already uploaded to our system, and would that stamp the date that it was initially down? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Again, we really want every campaign to demonstrate compliance. We don't go in thinking anyone made a misrepresentation. I do not see any evidence that these, including the affirmations submitted today, that show that there was a mistake on our part.
But if what he says is correct, that he can provide an affidavit or proof from the original contributor that they did sign it in 2020 or 2021, that would address the issue that's presented before us today. Is that not correct?
That would certainly address it. I'm not content on the basis of evidence that we haven't seen or hypotheticals to say that, okay, well, that means we would simply be done, because we do have a very sort of difficult to square technological, evidence here, but it would certainly go to the actual accusations or the actual claims being leveled here. And unlike the affirmations that we've submitted, that we've seen today.
If believed.
If believed, again, and that's an important point. Thank you for bringing that up, Board Chair. This discussion we're having right now is assuming that we're taking the affirmations that are submitted even yesterday on face value. That determination, the credibility determination, requires a lot of time and investigation and analysis by our investigations team and by other members of the legal team. So it's inappropriate. We're sort of assuming without deciding for the sake of today's hearing that, yes, these are okay, but we would definitely want to look into them, look into the signatures and make sure that they are credible in our eyes. The calls that Mr. Kanu is referring to, those are part of this is the kind of routine investigation we do to make sure that we are getting it right. We want to contact a contributor. And if a contributor says, yes, I signed this affirmation on such and such a date, such and such a time, that's helpful. We take that. Again, we're trying to get.
Did you have any recent conversations with any of these contributors on the subject of when they signed the form?
We were able to reach 2 contributors. One of them at the time said that the signature looked like theirs, but they couldn't remember signing the form. And the other one said that they didn't remember making a contribution or signing. That's correct, right?
And were those two the two that we have before us in these affirmations?
We typically don't like to identify who we've spoken to because it can create some conflict, but they're in this group.
All right. So I want to get ahead, Greg.
So this is a form letter that was generated in October 2025. Did this form letter change between 2020 and 2025? Do you know? I mean, if this letter in this form did not even exist in 2020, that would also be an interesting piece of information.
My understanding is that it's the same letter.
Okay.
My understanding is it's the same letter.
Yeah. So, Mr. Connor, let me address your point. I'm going to give you a chance to make any further statements you wish to make. But I want to address your point that you could get sworn statements or even live testimony by these individuals demonstrating that they signed these forms in 2020, notwithstanding the date of 2025 in the upper left. Your theory of the case is that there was a computer error committed by our system, because these were generated by our system, not by your computer. And that's all there is here, is this computer error. I want you to understand, you don't have to accept or agree with, but I want you to understand what the contrary theory is. The contrary theory is that these forms, which were generated and signed in 2025, were backdated to 2020. That, if it had occurred, sometimes people say the cover-up was worse than the crime, but here there doesn't appear to have been a crime. That is to say, these contributions appear to be real, and nobody's really contesting that. But somebody thought, this is the theory, you don't have to accept it, but this is the theory. Somebody thought when the CFB came knocking and said, we need some further evidence, that these contributions were only valid if the form itself was dated back in 2020. And so even though they were being signed in 2025, they were backdated to 2020 to make them valid. That was incorrect. There's no need. A form dated in 2025 would have been just as good as one signed in 2020. But somebody appeared to think that it was necessary to backdate the document, and therefore they were backdated, which is a fraud. And that is what you're being charged with here, is knowingly submitting these allegedly backdated documents. Now, if people came forward now and said, no, I really signed these in 2020 and I swear to that, that would be relevant evidence to the issue before us, if believed. And if it's not true, that would be another false statement. So the stakes here, even though the amounts of these contributions are very small, the stakes here are very high, because the question is whether somebody is lying and lying under oath. So I just want you to understand that if we were to give you, and we haven't deliberated yet, and I don't know what our decision is going to be, but if we were to give you another opportunity to submit evidence, not as to when the contribution was made, but rather when these forms were originally signed, that we would be giving you an opportunity, but also putting you and these people at further risk. And I just want you to understand that. Now, having said that, anything further you'd like to say, we will listen to.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I think the issue here is trying to clarify whether those dates were made up compared to the dates at the top. I will testify an oath with my life on it that nothing was made up. All of those individuals signed those documents. I can even go and research to even get proof. I may not say 100%. I could probably find pictures of some of those events when those individuals were at the fundraising event.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you obtain the original statements confirming the contribution, which are allegedly backdated? Were you present when these people signed these?
Yes, because this is what happened. And that's why when I wrote the letter to you, when I said it could have been my printer. Those forms are printed in hundreds, and we have them in a folder. So when I go to events, I carry those forms with me. When I go out to people's houses, I carry those forms with me, just in case if someone wants to donate to me, I could just get a form and they can fill it out. So I mentioned to him, I said, maybe that's when that was printed it could have been my computer on that. That's what I said in the letter. When I spoke to my wife, who works for one of congressperson and does campaign, she said the campaign finance sometimes populated dates. That's why when I spoke to you after, I said that to you. That was not in my letter. I said that to you verbally that could have been the situation. That's why that was not in the letter.
When you printed these documents in 2020, and for some mysterious reason, they came out with a date.
That's what,
25 on.
yes, I believe that.
Furthermore, the CFB's internal system says these forms were actually generated on that same weird October 9th, 2025.
Yes, I would submit that the date isn't that weird. It's the date before or the date of the response to the enforcement notice.
Right.
It's not a random date.
That's not, it's 2 days. If you look at some of those, one form that said the 9th, several forms said the 9th, then another form said the 10th. But what I'm saying is this, we're trying to confirm whether those people signed those affirmation or those
On that date.
on that day. I can bring them here. I can request a hearing and bring those people to testify in front of you. And if you call somebody after 6 years of donating $10, a lot of people will not remember if I donate $10 to somebody.
But if they
6 years ago.
don't, but if they don't remember when he called them, what makes you think they're going to remember if you bring them in here in person?
No, because I go by the name Al Canoe. People, a lot of my friends, everyone call me Al Canoe. He calls me by my full name, Al Hassan Canoe. If some of the guys he called that called me, Bilal Karim called me back because he knows my name. So when you call somebody that doesn't know me as Al Hassan and say, did you sign a document for Al Hassan 2001? There's possibility they say, I don't remember.
I hear you.
What I'm saying is when they come in front of me and sit here and they see my face, they will testify on oath that they signed those documents for me and they gave me those contributions on the days that it says they signed. And I could bring my entire campaign portfolio and drop it and you can go through every single thing and you will not find anything that we did wrong in that campaign, even after the campaign treasurer resigned. That was probably when this whole thing started. When after she resigned, I had to try to figure this thing out. And I wasn't knowledgeable of campaign finance. I didn't go to none of their classes. I didn't see videos. I don't have ideas. I was going through step by step just to get things done. Printed thousands or hundreds of copies of this, and we went around, raised some funds, give it to people, they sign it, and we put it and submit it. If we made a mistake, we made a mistake. But were those money valid? Were those signatures signed on the days that we say they did? Yes, sir. I would give my life to that.
I do just want to note that these documents, the ones that you're looking at in Exhibit 5, they didn't start out blank. They couldn't have been one of 1,000 that were then filled in. When they're generated and printed by our system, the information that you see, committee name, contributor name, amount, date, contribution type, cash, that's all populated into this specific document. And that's also something our system logs. Our system says this specific document was generated for this specific contribution. The TID number, that's the transaction ID number, is in the top right corner.
I diffuse that. That's not true. That is not true. The system can actually give you blank and you put the information in and then you print it out.
Can do that.
No, but he's saying these particular documents, the system shows that they were in fact public.
Because we typed those information. You came to me to donate $10. I have the app in front of me. I fill your information out, then we press print. Then it prints out and you sign. That happens all the time.
All right. I think the parties have made all of the arguments that they needed or intended to make. I think we're ready to deliberate. I'll give you one last shot, Mr. Kanu, but we've heard you, we've heard them, and we're ready. But if there's one final thing you'd like to say, go ahead.
Yes. Chair and executive board, I'll say for the last 20 years, I worked for city council. I worked for Senator Leroy Conway for 12 years. I worked for Danick Miller for 8 years. I have not been in anything like this in my life. I've been a member of community board for 10 years. A dedicated servant to my community. I am asking, because I'm asking the board not to erase any of this, allow me to bring the individuals or documents stated, whether they go to the bank or notary signed document stating they can sign this. I need another opportunity to bring those documents to you to show that those documents were not false. And I really feel like Campaign Finance Board staff, this is wrong. This is wrong. I think what I'm hearing is it's not how we fix an issue. It's how you get me to pay a $10,000 penalty. That's what I'm feeling here. Because if I'm telling you, you're giving me your word, I'm giving you my word that you could be wrong. Just like you said, I could be wrong. That I can bring these people here to testify. And you telling me it could be, you have to view the signatures, you have to just to verify. It tells me your interest is the money rather than making sure that we have a system that is equitable for every New Yorker. The interest here that I'm saying, and I am disappointed because based on our conversation, I thought you were a better person than that. But you're forcing me to pay $10,000 instead of trying to fix the situation that I'm telling you could have existed. It may be wrong, but it could have existed. But give me a chance to fix it by allowing those people to come here and testify or bring in another document. Because I thought those documents that I put this information that I sent you yesterday, I thought that's what we were doing. I thought that's all it was. If he was to confirm those dates, I could have added that to tell him to add that to the document, have it signed, notarized, and bring it to you. That I could have brought that to you today.
Let me say this.
So really
I
disappointed.
want to be fair to our staff here. I don't think anybody's intent here is to force you to pay a $10,000 fine that is not well-founded and legitimate. Our staff has correctly noted that up to this moment in time, you have not submitted evidence that would contradict their conclusion and allegation that these documents are backdated. Now, you have asked for additional time and opportunity to do that, and we're going to consider that. But up to this point in time, there has not been such evidence. And so in fairness to our staff, I want it clear that they, I believe, and I think it's really not in dispute, have acted in good faith. But we hear you as to your request for an additional opportunity, and we will consider that.
Thank you.
Is there anything further you guys would like to say?
Nothing further.
Okay. We're going to go into deliberation, so we'll be back in a little while. Okay. So the board has deliberated, and I want to start with Mr. Kano because that's the one that's where it's a little bit more complicated, and we're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to make the following motion with respect to Mr. Kano, which is that the board defer any action on this matter today. We're going to put it back on the calendar for the August meeting. And Mr. Kano, if you have witnesses that you want to bring to the next meeting, bring them. Or any other evidence you want to submit. But if it's going to be witnesses, they need to be here in person. We don't want to see affirmations. We want to see them live. With respect to the staff, there are two things that we'd like you to look at further, which may or may not turn out to be helpful, but go back and look at the metadata and see if any information or analysis of the metadata it's relevant and helpful in this respect. And that's number one. And number two, the dates on the original affirmations back in 2020 come fairly quickly after the dates on the contribution cards. And the question the board has that we'd like you to look at is whether the notice that was given to the campaign that there was something missing or not quite right about the contribution cards occurred within that interim, or whether it occurred later, and that therefore there would have been no reason for somebody to be going and getting an affirmation letter during that period of time. I see Isaac is shaking his head, so presumably he understands what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm going to do this one separately. So I'm going to make the motion that this matter be put off for a month, subject to what I just said. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So that is put off. Mr. Kano, I see you raised your hand. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to know what.
Loud.
I just wanted to know around when in August, because I'm expecting my wife's supposed to deliver sometime within August.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that would take priority. So the date of our next meeting is August 13th. And if she's in labor, we will put it off another month. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. With respect to the remaining matters, we're going to take them all as a group, including Mr. Bailey, who's here. But I'm just going to run through all of these now. 1, 2, 3. So there are 5 more to go. So I'm going to propose that the board find the following violations and impose the following penalties. First, candidate Adrian Adams, 2023 candidate for city council. I propose the board finds the violation of converting campaign funds to a personal use and impose a penalty of $3,585. Second, Jonathan Bailey, the 2021 candidate for city council. I propose that the board find a violation of failing to respond to the IDR and DAR and impose a penalty of $2,500. Third, Nancy Martinez, a candidate in the special election in 2021 for city council. I propose that the board finds the following violations and impose the following penalties. 1, failing to provide bank, credit card, and merchant account statements, $200. 2, failing to demonstrate compliance with cash receipts reporting and documentation requirements, $1,302. 3, failing to demonstrate compliance with the reporting requirements for receipts, $10,000. 4, failing to respond to the IDR and DAR, $545. 5, breach of certification and material misrepresentation, fraud, submission of false or fictitious information, $20,000 for a grand total of $32,047. Next, Socrates Solano, a 2021 candidate for city council. I propose the board find the following violation and impose the following penalty: failing to respond to the IDR, $2,234. And finally, here we go. Talia Wufka, a 2021 candidate for city council. I propose that the board find the following violation and impose the following penalty: failing to respond to the IDR, $5,164, and a public funds repayment of $20,487.69. That is the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. We have one more item on our agenda for today, and that is a complaint by the candidate concerning the campaign of candidate Christian Jordan from 2023. The board has recommended, and I will move to dismiss that complaint. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? That motion carries. With that, we're really done with our public business today. I'll make the usual motion that the board will go into executive session to discuss some litigation and other matters that don't require any action, and we will adjourn directly from the executive session. That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.